oh, we just worked with this guy, he's super good vibes, I'm pretty sure he was gonna say yes.
But that guy wasn't available, so then we went.
This is how you get started in the career. And it turns out there's a paywall. We're all gonna fuck up at some point. Like, it's unavoidable. He just lost $700.
All right, welcome. Today we have
Marty.
I'm Marty.
All right, so introduce yourself. You're, I guess more, that's your main camera, but you don't have to look at cameras. You can kind of be yourself, but if you want to look at the camera, be like, hey, subscribe.
Yeah.
You can, point over there.
Like and subscribe.
That's all that matters.
Tell us about you and your career, pretty much, your position.
Sure. I'm Marty, and my position is bottom.
Okay, guys, today we're gonna be talking about the dynamics of top and bottom.
Next question.
I'm done with podcast over. That was all the questions we needed.
Have a great time. Thank you for watching.
So the comedian was the guy from the last episode. What's going on? We just got a little bit of.
So filmmakers are actually funny. We make movies about depression, but we're actually comedians on the inside.
All of our films are so sad.
Depression, and then we're just fucking laughing.
It's always a thriller, but in reality, we're so funny. All right, let's get a little bit to your career though, how you started. And
as bottom.
Let's go. Let's go to how you started, because so Marty, we've worked with him as a sound guy, was what we call it, in several different commercials, films. I've worked with him years ago, and Amongst the Shadows, which was one of my first short films. I didn't even know Val back then, and
No, he was.
right?
I didn't know he was there, actually.
What?
Just knew that fact.
He didn't even know he was there.
Yeah, I tell him, and he's like, you were my birthday.
I have a picture of him there, because
We hung out for 10 years as a kid.
EMMANUEL was there as well, doing God knows what, assistant producer.
I was producing or AD.
AD, yeah, probably something like that. I know it was a really good film and a great experience on set. But that's when we started working together, and now we work together again on Val's documentary, right?
That was when I think I met you.
Yeah, I guess you got my information from them.
No, from John, the guy, the one that is with the wife. They own Mute Majestic Production. So John, I was asking if Laura could operate a sound for us, and she's like, no, that's not her strong skill. She's willing to do AD. And I was like, okay, then we need a sound guy. And he's like, oh, we just worked with this guy, he's super good vibes, I'm pretty sure he was gonna say yes.
But
And
that
that's
guy
when I
wasn't
called you.
available, so then we went.
Third choice.
Yeah, that's how he actually ended up in my set.
UCF,
through-
the one, no, the other one.
No, for Empower.
No, but I'm saying which set it was. It wasn't
Empowered.
at UCF. It was the Valencia.
Yeah, but they're all empowered. It was all empowered, the documentary.
It's William Olsen, right? The one at UCF that we worked.
Because he wasn't available that day, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You guys know Will Olsen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, it's awesome.
We know every song. The thing is, so I always took around. There's only 3 sound guys in Orlando, and everyone's like, you know him.
And then there's Harrison.
And then Harrison. And then Harrison is the teacher that taught everybody, and then it's the
Harrison,
gym.
he's the master.
The go.
And then there's a couple more, and that's it.
And then it's his spawn. And I just
Jedi Master, and we're just add-ons, dude. He trained us up. So going back into how I came up from the bottom and now I'm here. So I've always had an interest in film. As a kid, Back to the Future was always my favorite film. I just love making little dumb videos of my cars and toys or whatever. And so for years I was just always a lofty passion, but I never knew that could actually be a career. And then 2006 or so, YouTube came out, and so me and my friends started making our own little videos, and that was really fun for a while. But then I don't know, I started seeing more and more other YouTubers doing some more elaborate stuff. They had cool special effects, or they just have a better production value. So then I kind of talked myself out of it. I was like, all right, film is maybe that's not for me. It's really hard. You have to be really good, and it's a lot of things to learn. So I fell off of it for a while until middle school, where we had a science project. And it was a video project, and ours failed because something like corrupted in the middle of editing, so we never actually got to show our final project. But from then on, I was like, I am determined to make film happen. Like, I don't care if it's hard or whatever. Like, I'm going to make this happen somehow. And then I started working at Disney, which
we all know Disney.
I have a lot of great memories from working there, but it is only because of the people that made it great. Working for that company was not as much. I hated a lot of the days working there, to be completely honest. And finally, like I said, the people there were amazing, and it only takes one person to change your trajectory of life.
Yeah.
So I met some amazing person there who changed my life. Her name is Heidi, and she told me about the Valencia Film Program. And up until that point, I like considered UCF, briefly considered Full Sail, but I'm sorry, Full Sail is a scam. You can cut that out if that, whatever. But I considered it, but like if I was gonna get a formal education in film, it had to be something practical, usable, and affordable. So I was in like limbo for a few years while I was working at Disney. I was there for about 4 years.
You worked in the parks?
In the parks, yeah. I was driving boats and
Boats.
we talked about
Sure, you're the boat driver? The
boat driver.
Heck yeah.
Where? Which one?
I drove the Tom Sawyer rafts at Tom Sawyer Island in Magic Kingdom, and then I did the friendship boats at Epcot, and then eventually I went over to the double-decker boats out in front of Magic Kingdom, and then I drove the little launch boats.
That's so
And then that's when I got
cool.
fired.
And then I ran somebody over.
What'd you do in that one?
The way I got fired?
I'm curious. If you don't mind.
We're pretty open, man.
It's so stupid. I was like running late to training one day, and Disney is really, really like anal, like obscenely anal about how on time you have to clock in. And with the parks, it's so difficult because you got a bunch of tourists coming in at the same time. You don't have an alternate way to get in. Like Hollywood Studios, Epcot, you have like other back doors, but it's still a giant parking lot and you have a lot of walk time, and they don't consider that. And so I'm like sweating trying to get in to clock in on time. I go and park to this closer parking area, which is like right behind where I need to go. Long story short, I clock in, I come back out, and they're trying to get my car towed. So it turns out that even though I saw a bunch of my boat captains parking there, it was only reserved for like award members, and I didn't know that. And then I got in a small altercation with the managers there. I was trying to tell them like, look, I didn't know. I'm just trying to move my car. One of them tried to like stop my vehicle, like step in front of it. And I didn't respect that at all. Like, I don't appreciate you trying to antagonize me like that. And so when I was able to clear, I got away and just drove off. But then they got the police involved. And they found out, like, they went the full mile. They wanted my ass so bad.
The Disney FBI, bro. They know.
Dude,
They know.
Like, they got, Reedy Creek Police involved, looked up my license, found out I was the driver, and when I got asked about it earlier in the day, I was like, oh, yeah, I didn't drive that car. I don't know who that was. And then, yeah, later in that day, like, towards my end of the shift, they were like, yeah, we found out that was you, and so we're going to try to talk over with the shop steward and the union and all, but yeah, so shortly afterwards, I was fired, but it was honestly one of the best things ever because for those 4 years, I felt like I was stuck in a limbo where, like, I hated what I was doing. Again, love the people. The people make it better, but, like, when you hate the job, like, you just want to get out. You just feel like you're stuck in this
And
repetitive...
in theory, it doesn't even sound bad, right? It sounds fun.
Yeah.
Driving
You're
the
working in the park,
boats
right?
in the parks and
It makes
especially
such a
the
big
bigger
difference.
one in Magic Kingdom, the big one, the steamboat one.
A lot of it was the pay. Because, like, you're just, like... There's a lot of collateral damage and, you know, risk involved for driving these things, and you're getting paid $11 an hour. It's like, why am I here?
Yeah.
And, like, I'm not in my career. I'm enjoying what I'm doing, but I'm doing it for so long. Like, you're just out coasting at, like, 2 nautical miles an hour to the next dock. And so you do that for 8 hours a day, and, like, I'm very ADHD. I like to be hands-on. I like to be busy and do stuff. I also love to not do stuff, but let me do that on my own time with, like, video games or something.
Yeah.
But with this, it just felt like this loop. So when I got fired, it forced me out of it. Like, now I don't have a choice. And then I remember what Heidi said, and at this point, she recommended Valencia. And so the choice was made for me. I'm gonna go back to school, try film, and go for it. Didn't know what was gonna result, and I didn't even know what I wanted to focus on. Maybe editing or whatever. There's so many facets to film. What do you choose? And so it wasn't until the year before I started the film, like the actual focused film classes, you know, because you have all the prereqs.
Yeah.
So I'm about to finally start the first semester, and like the summer before, the alumni before us, they were doing their short films. I was invited to come out to one of them to PA, and that's where I met Harrison. And the funny thing is,
The Jedi Master Harrison.
you know, dude, Mace Windu looks like he's like our age. So I didn't know anything, right? I like came up to him, talked to him, and I talked to Will too. I was like, yeah, like you're carrying the boom. Like, tell me about that, because that's so interesting. I don't know. And he was just talking, like Will told me that if you want to be busy, if you want to, you know, possibly a stable career, consider sound, because it's often overlooked and super important. And I was like, dude, I will literally go anywhere. So yeah, like let me know. And so, and then that's where I met Harrison. Like I said, Harrison's our age. So I talked to him, whatever, and like we just shot the shit for a little bit. He left, and then Will told me, like, by the way, that's your professor for sound next semester. I was like, what? What?
That kid?
So
He's
funny.
great.
Harrison's so cool. Yeah.
And that's what it takes, like amazing people that put you on your right career. So Heidi first, like, just put me in the right direction for school. Will taught me some of the basics of booming, and then he pointed me towards Harrison. And then Harrison just let me know what's up. Like, this is how you get started in the career. And it turns out there's a paywall. That's how you get into film, folks. Especially now, you need to buy gear and like own all that. You have to be an owner operator if you want to be busy and self-sufficient. And I see that more and more now.
Yeah.
Like everyone owning Reds or their own sound kits and stuff. But
Yeah, especially when like I have a bunch of websites where you can apply, you know, for specific freelance positions, and it says come with this, come with that. Sometimes I would say like 1/3 of the positions, like, hey, we have our own equipment because they want all the footage to be the same.
Right.
But yeah, like you said, especially with sound, like no one's gonna buy it, no one's gonna hire a sound guy, and then they show up and they're like, what do you want me to do? Yeah.
it's almost expected now.
Yeah.
And I have a small story about that we can get into later. But yeah, so kit is really important, and then learning the stuff. So prior to Valencia and all, the biggest question is like, how do you get a film job? What do you do? Like all this. And so I do so much research online, and like the internet only helps so much because they all have the same answers. Yeah. It's not what you know, it's who you know. You just have to make connections. Just put yourself out there. Like, okay, but how the frick do I do that? Like, where? What? How the fuck did you do that?
Instantly demonetized.
But no, but like, yeah, so
Yeah.
It was largely unhelpful, right? And then, and you don't have to go to film school. Like, you can learn everything just online or whatever, practically. But what I loved about film school is that I was getting the hands-on practical knowledge and knowing the gear, because like...
Networking too? The networking side too? And
and the networking. Oh, dude, Valencia has a great networking program. But like apart from like, if you didn't know any film people, especially if they don't own gear, how the hell are you gonna know what grip gear is? How are you gonna know what a gobo head is, or what I don't know, like a coiled XLR? Like, I don't know, like.
And here in Orlando too, if you're not in like either Valencia or you don't do film, you don't know there's people that do film.
Exactly.
You just go around and you're like, people do film in Orlando. Like,
Right.
What the heck? Like, there's no knowledge about that at all, unless you know a guy that knows a guy that knows a guy.
Sign to say, hey, welcome, here's the...
Like the underground film community of Orlando.
We don't all wear berets and scarves.
sometimes we wear shirts that have, or we have tattoos now. So then you can kind of tell, but most of the time.
It's like, you see that guy? He might be a DP. Let's go talk to him.
Or he likes to rave. Either or.
Like, well, side tangent, but like you mentioned, like you saw my candy beats and you're like, this guy likes to party.
There you go.
But like apart from that, like I don't think you would see me and think like this guy does film or this guy does audio. Like, you know, I think the typical audio guy is hefty usually, a little overweight, maybe balding. Wears flame shirts like Guy Fieri. But yeah, like anyways, but like finding that niche, finding that community, a group of people, how to break into the industry. So Valencia gave me all of that in one swoop. Of course, you can't learn everything in school. It's the practical experience, but knowing what the gear is was already a huge step up.
Yeah.
And then knowing what gear to buy was also another step up. Thank you again, Harrison. And then knowing how to use that gear. Because, like, okay, you can buy it, but if you don't have the practice, and, like, you can practice at home and set up and everything, but it will not click until you are on a set, syncing everything, putting time code together, getting the shots in, learning how to boom a scene with movements, communicating with each of the department heads, learning how to lob someone up with some weird fabric or costumes. Like, there's all these facets and different variables that you cannot get outside of a set. It doesn't have to be a big production set, but you have to be on a set. And so...
And it's so important too, as like a person that does video or the director, like trusting someone to do the audio. I remember I think it was my second or third film, this guy had best audio equipment ever that I saw at the time. And I was like, oh, this guy could do audio, perfect. Came in, I got him for like, he's gonna be here for like, it was a 4-night shoot. I only hired him for 1 night because he came up, he had the boom mic and it looked perfect. And I was like, perfect, man. How's the audio sound? And he says, recorded the whole like night. I get home and I'm like, perfect, time to sync the audio. And then I click the audio files and it's just like whispering.
No.
And I'm like, what? And it's like, it's literally like, I would raise the dBs full as many times as I could, bro. It was like barely like, it barely got to, it got to like negative 64 dB, I think. And I was like, he was like, hey, do you want me to come on any other days? I was like, nah, we're fine. I'm gonna do ADR. We're fine. Like,
so it's a mix, right? Like having the equipment is part of it, but that doesn't mean anything if you don't know how to use it.
It's the thing. It's a two-facet thing. Like you need to like, especially like once you do like commercial or paid production, people expect, like you said, people expect you to come up with a rig. But like you said, it's that practical experience that school can give you once you're on set using equipment, and then once you're on set using that equipment, even with camera stuff. Like, oh yeah, my camera can shoot 120 FPS, but if you've never pressed that button or pressed 120 FPS, you can go on set. I remember when I first got the camera, I didn't understand, because DSLRs have shutter speed, not shutter angle. So you have to manually change it. But like I remember the first time I shot on 120, I didn't know I had to be at 240. I thought it automatically did that. So I shot on 120 FPS, but, but it looked awful, because that's something that you do by doing, instead of like, cool, I have the equipment to do it.
You have to make mistakes. That's a huge thing. Like, okay, so the sound guy fucked up, right? But we're all gonna fuck up at some point. Like, it's unavoidable. So some personal examples of mine. Syncing time code is still weird because like that's an inconsistent thing. All these cameras are different, and it's like it should theoretically just be plug and play synced, but it just doesn't work sometimes. So we'll have to like troubleshoot. But oh man, like. One of the biggest mistakes I've made, I might have to think about this for a second, because like, there was one. Now, thank God, all these mistakes were manageable because they were on smaller sets. Thing is, you want to get all your mistakes out now, early, while you're still learning, while you're a student on smaller, no-risk sets, because God forbid you do that on a big budget thing.
You get paid $10K to give them no audio. It would be...
And the more like, okay, so it's about who you know, not what you know. Your name is your resume. You know, it's your referral. And if it's a bad name, especially with like top players, you just locked yourself out from a big market of high
them, and then every person they're gonna talk to.
Exactly.
Every single person.
They're not gonna know so many people.
I still have nightmares, bro, of like waking up, like I'm in a dream and I don't press record. I still have nightmares. It's been years and I still have nightmares.
The pressure is real. Like you feel it when you're there. You're like, okay, please, everything
go right
worked.
And you can tell too, like on like Instagram, like there's so many memes I see. It's like when it's like a 30-minute interview and then you press like the focus button, you realize you're on recording, and then it has like a guy's face like, oh no. It's scary.
That's what it is with directing. Not taking away from that when I got back to that, but with directing, when you show up to the set, any of those mistakes also falls on you. So from the dumbest thing, like the DP just not pressing record, to the sound guy just literally not capturing any sound levels that you needed. But like all those things, they do end up falling on you as well. So as the department head, but like literally the director, so you have to like check with everybody from every single department that they're doing their job right. And when you don't have when you don't know the people beforehand and you didn't have enough pre-production meetings or you didn't work with them before and you just show up to set, and it's happened with me before, you're like, okay, I don't know how this guy works. I don't know how she works. I don't know how are we going to have any chemistry on set to make sure that we get everything done and we get it done on budget and on time, right? So it is a bigger responsibility, right? Everyone wants to be the director, but it's also a huge responsibility on it.
The audience that doesn't know anything about film, if anything fucks up, they're gonna be like, they're only gonna blame on two things: the directing or the acting.
Yeah.
Only two things they're gonna focus on.
And the acting is like this with directing. So like if they blame it on the actor and they've seen that actor work good in a different project, it's the director. And then it's what you guys said. One big guy knows about it, everyone else that's big knows about it, it's over. So it's a lot of responsibility. But yeah, I want to get back to what you were saying though with the mistake.
So yeah, let's get that out of the way. So the mistake I made was we were shooting this shitty film, right? Super small, whatever. And I like to have a music channel on just for myself whenever just downtime in between setups. And I guess it just didn't occur at the time.
Yeah.
Some things are so apparent in hindsight. Anyway, so even though I had the ISO track for the music not armed, so it wasn't gonna record, I still had the fader up, which means it's going into the mix.
Oh my god!
So
It's like a cry scene. Why don't you love me?
my mom, she's dying. We're gonna go to the hospital.
Dude, I'm getting like goosebumps. My editor
I
sitting
hope
down.
the remix was good.
So
My boy Marty's Marty's just like remixing at that point. He's like, yeah, we're good.
remixing your voice, roll it back.
Hold on, but it recorded to the same.
So here's the thing, like the damage was mitigated because we have the ISO track. So this is why, ladies and gentlemen, we do redundancy as much as possible. If you ever wonder why we have both mics on people and a boom, it's because if one thing fucks up, we have a safety. And it's not an option at some point anymore.
I want to jump into that later, like explain how the setup works on a set and why would you have those two things? Because some people watching us know that, but some people just don't know like how it even works with sound. Yeah. So I want to jump into that later, but yeah, keep going.
So for sure, redundancy, and I also want to bring up too that you mentioned communication because that's also like another 50% of the job. But yeah, so redundancy is so important because, like I mentioned, ISO tracks. So you have your mix, which is just everything you've got up together, which is great for it's great for editors to just get quick playback and hear roughly what I have at once. But normally you want to play with the ISO tracks because the more individualism, separate elements you have to work with, it's like working with raw film.
Yeah.
You have more options to work with and it can come out cleaner. So we were safe because we had a clean boom, we had a clean lav, and we had a music channel you just remove. But on the surface, when you just instantly hit play, you're going to hear the mix. So you're just going to hear at once.
I can imagine the director watching the playback like,
What the fuck is it?
It's like when I gave Brooke, I was a cinematographer for a short film, and it was my first time having my camera that has 2 SD cards on it. So I gave the director the log. We didn't have a person to log, like the files. So I was just the one doing DP, and I just like gave her the SD card. And I was like, okay, it's lot number 1, SD card, boom, go home. She calls me, she's like crying. She's like, oh my God, I don't see any footage here. You didn't record it. I'm like, listen, I know I recorded.
it's the next day, like me and him were like at a restaurant drinking, because it's a film festival like the next day. So we're like at a film festival, and the first day was like the most important scene of the whole movie. So we shot all that, and then we get a call. We hear. I looked at Fernando. I was like, I'm DP next time.
Like, listen, bro, I know there's no way. There's 2, and then I was like, hold on, what could have happened? And I'm like, oh, there's 2 slots in my camera.
I always do format before I give them.
So then boom, okay, it's here. So it's similar to that.
Very similar.
Yeah.
And so no problem there, right? But a lot of times it's just the way you represent your work to the client.
Yeah.
So even though technically we're safe with the ISO tracks or whatever, and like it was fine because I knew the guy, like we're not friends, but like we're copacetic. So it wasn't like, oh, I'm never gonna work with you again. But had it been any other clients, even though we had the ISO tracks, even though it was saved, it would still look really bad to that client to give them a mix, and that shit happens.
Yeah.
Right. So glad I learned that lesson then. Not gonna make that mistake now. And there are several examples of that where it's like we cut it really close. Here's another example. This is a higher budget thing we're doing now. We're shooting for the NBA, but I can't say more than that. NBA.
Actually, it was called the NDA.
So we're shooting with them or whatever. We're getting some interviews, and I didn't get the name of our interviewee, so I'm like changing the name during like mid take. I change it, and then the file corrupts. And like I didn't know it because like it's happened before where sound devices, my mixer will just like put little pluses next to the file name, so I just didn't think anything of it until we cut, and I try to hit playback, and it just doesn't play, and it skips to the next take. I'm like, what just happened? So I'm like, this has never happened before, and I've relabeled takes mid take. So why did it happen now? I don't know why it happened. It just did. It was just sometimes you can do all your due diligence and still make a mistake. Like I said, they are right. Like literally, like a pterodactyl.
Yeah.
No one knows how to make a pterodactyl consistently. Those things have a mind of their own, you know. So
what'd you do?
Thank God we were sending, again, redundancy. I'm sending a feed to the camera directly. So even though that file got corrupted, we thankfully had a clean audio sent straight to the camera, and they could use that.
That's good.
Thank God. Thank God, because otherwise it's like, what do you tell them? Like, hey, sorry, NBA, we didn't get that one interview with that person. Tough. You know?
It was just Michael Jordan.
Like, one of the worst things you can do is offer... Right, just get them in again. But like, one of the worst things you can do is not have another solution. You know, and sometimes you are SOL.
That is a big no-no when you tell people, like, no one wants to hear problems. You have to be like, if there is a problem, be like, hey, but I solved it. Right. Like, you can't be like, hey, here's the problem. You can just sit back and like nothing.
Having a backup and always like knowing how to communicate, because if you think about it, a big part of it, like you said, is communication. Yes. Like even how you communicate to the client. Yes. That there were 2 SD slots, not just one. Right. Or in your case, that the mix is here, but you also have separate tracks. Exactly. And don't worry, I will send you those separate tracks.
And I always joke with Fernando and a bunch of other people, like because we do a lot of like smaller commercial, smaller, stuff where you're capturing B-roll. Sometimes when you're in a rush, you don't press record, or you press it slightly, and it doesn't register. And then you go, and then you think you're recording, and then you realize, oh, it wasn't recording. I never tell that to the actor or anybody. I just say, you could do better. And then I press record again, and I capture the footage. Yeah. No one ever knows when I don't record. Like, it's like their vision of like what's going on needs to be the best to its ability, unless it's like no other way around, then I have to be like, all right, we gotta do it again.
There was this time we did a film and he didn't record any of it.
Yeah, it was like 4 days straight, and then he just didn't record a single thing.
Overnight shoot
he
goes
didn't
by.
take the lens cap.
Sorry, what?
He didn't take the lens cap.
It was
he
all
record, but
it was all black, but the sound was really good.
So we actually just made like a audio movie.
It was very ahead of its time. Yeah. But here's another example. Another guy I worked with, definitely not gonna name his name, but he had a full, I think like 3 or 4 days in the can in his SD card recorded, right, to give the client.
No backup?
No backups. In his pocket, travel day, so he's going back home, loses the SD card. He just lost $700 or more. And then that's it. There's no redeeming that.
At that point, I just lie. I'll be like, I got in a car crash. I'll take like a photo of like a leg cast. The car hit the side where the SD card was. Legs gone. Feel pity for me.
Just get in the actual car crash. Make it happen now. You better.
Yeah, like so I have Dropbox. Dude, every single time I do, like we were doing like the event coverage, every single day I would go to it was like 10 hours of shooting. I'd go back to my house, no matter what, open the laptop, plug stuff in, organize the footage, put it on my computer. My computer automatically backs it up to Dropbox. It takes a couple hours. But then while that's happening, get a hard drive and then back it up. Yeah. That footage is backed up into 3 hard drives right now. 3 hard drives that footage is backed up to. And one of them is Dropbox. And then 2 in.
So you have the physical, you have a copy of that, and you have a digital.
Yes, because it's happened more than like a handful of times now in my short career of only 5 years, where we will finish a project and months later, mind you, I'll be hit back with a text. Hey, do you happen to have that audio from 6 months ago?
Yeah.
What? Sorry, what? Like, no, like I don't keep backups like that either. Like maybe ask me a month later and I might still have it, but 6 months later.
Even stuff like that, for us, I mean, as a freelancer, it's one thing, but when you own a production company and then you offer your services to a client, you have to have even that in the contract. So, you know, I'm going to keep that footage on this cloud service. I pay monthly for that subscription of that service, and you're going to have access to that for that amount of time. Even with something more important like weddings. So the wedding you guys shot for me, I edited. I had like different copies. I had like the footage that he sent me. I had it on my Dropbox. I finished everything. I made sure the bride and everyone had everything that they needed. And I confirmed a million times before I went and I actually deleted the original files. Because otherwise, and even that has to be on your contract.
So you guys delete your project files?
After everything?
I just put it in a hard drive just in case. Even though I'm not gonna lie though, so I do go back sometimes and I'm like, this project I'm never gonna use it in my portfolio, and I don't even talk to this person that hired me anymore. All right, whatever.
Yeah, corporate work. I try to have that because it could be a client that reaches out again later. So I just got the 5 terabyte one, and I'm just like throwing 3 different SSDs into that, so there's footage for clients.
It fills up so quick.
It
I have like 10 in my room, and they're all filled.
Huge, man.
And I need to get a label maker because I just don't know which I don't know the order. I don't know which ones.
Because you're also backing up like 4K footage, right?
Yeah.
Usually 4K raw footage. Yeah. One clip is like 1 terabyte. It's like
Sometimes you have 2
That's
cameras,
where
3
all our
cameras.
money goes.
yeah, backup footage.
5, 6.
It's like like 10 days of audio, 1 gigabyte.
But it's also a lot of pressure with audio because like most of the times, I mean, some sets don't even have one person for sound. When they have 2, that's like too much. That's a lot. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm not saying it's too much. I think on a big set you should have 2, 3, 4 people to do that. But I'm saying on a smaller set, it's hard sometimes to even find one person. And if you have a lower budget, so all the responsibility is on you.
Yeah, it is. I had a video, and it was an interview, super easy. I was like, let me concentrate because the person I was interviewing didn't speak English. She was from Brazil, and I will speak Spanish. And that way, we made it work out. So it was too much for me to think about sound, and I hired somebody, and I'm like, okay, you operate this, and I didn't even check. Plus, it was one of the, it was a big gig. It was so random how, I got it, and it had only, 4 days to prepare. So I was like, whoa, all over the place, and then the sound was fucked.
It was bad? So you never
And
used it?
They did, but they had to do a bunch of, post-production on it. And I was like...
And that girl is famous, right? The
Yeah.
one you interviewed. You sent me her information. She was an actress or something?
Yeah, director.
Director, yeah. She was big. She was big in Brazil. She's well known there. Yeah.
Yeah, and
It's
I was
scary.
like,
It's scary, really scary.
Yeah.
Okay, let me
on
just
shoots that,
kill
just have a shotgun mic just in case, you know.
yeah.
I'm less scared of getting stabbed than me fucking up footage in front of a client. But even with these little mics, I always back up the recording. Even with clients, I literally on my contracts when I give clients projects, I say here, I'm gonna have if it's interviews, not if it's B-roll, I'm not gonna give backup audio for B-roll. But if it's interviews, here's backup audio in case there's any transmission issues, in case, especially if you're using wireless, it's you don't want them to deal with the worst possible audio.
Yeah.
You want them to have a backup.
I would say if you're super close to the subject and you have something like that where you don't know the sound person, or, ideally, of course, we know the crew and everything, but sometimes you're traveling and you just got to get someone to do it.
Yeah.
A shotgun mic, you're super close to the subject, that's better than nothing. If you have a lav, good. You have the sound guy, but you still have your own audio. You never know,
Yeah.
Can we talk about setups a little bit? Just explaining how it is, because I think that would be cool, for someone that doesn't know it. And when we get someone here like Joey that we can talk about lighting specifically, we can talk about light setups. But I think right now it would be really cool to just explain, you have a scene, You have a dialogue or an interview. How do you deal with sound? How does that work? What's the basic equipment? All of that.
I love that question. And this is actually going to bring it back to what I wanted to talk about with you earlier, is the communication aspect. So we mentioned knowing the gear, knowing how to use it. But again, the other like 50% of the job, or 33.3%, because like it's like divided into 3. But like you have to be like good at your job, know what to do, but you also have to be just a good person to work with. Because if you're an asshole, but you're good at what you do, people can tolerate you, but they would prefer to work with somebody else.
That's what I tell Emmanuel all the time.
Yo, can you stop being such a... No,
Pod is over. I will point it out.
no, but I think on every episode we always end up bringing it up.
Every time.
It's such a big deal to be like, it's with everything, just being a pleasant person.
Yeah.
It's just, I think that's number one when you look for somebody. But then, yeah, you know, if they're great, but their audio's garbage, you're like, I want to have you on set, but...
Yeah, you have to have both.
Mm-hmm.
I would say more important to be a good coachable person, because skills can be learned, but your intrinsic value, that's on you, bro. Like, if you're an asshole, then you're just an asshole. You can't learn to be a good person. I mean, God help you and change it, but like, you know, but if it's just like a small skill issue, like, oh, you just didn't turn your gain up, that's a small fix. You know to do that next time. You know what I mean? But so going back to what you said, knowing the setups, how to do all this. So on a technical side, there's a lot of facets to it, but I guess the word of the day today is facets. But there's a lot of like elements and variables to it, but it's set up the same pretty much. Like once you get into your rhythm, it's rinse and repeat, no matter what the project is. If you show up to a narrative, I scan for frequencies. Like obviously you want to unload all your gear, have everything just laid out and know what you need. Cut all of that. Let's start back from the beginning. When choosing to do a setup for a project, I always like to think and ask questions, a bunch of questions first. What am I getting myself into? Because at first, when I was getting into this whole scene, I would just take whatever job because I want to get started. But like now, as I do this more and more, let me know all the information up front. Do we know what to expect? Is this run and gun? Is this ENG? Is this interviews? B-roll? Narrative? What? Like conference? Like sometimes I don't even do film. It's just something completely different, but they need my audio expertise. And it's like, these skills are transferable, but what are we going to do? So whenever I get a project, my first question is, what is it? What's the call sheet? What if we get one, you know, soon enough? What's the script if I can get it? And they don't always have that information. That's fine, but then that sets up this precedence of like, all right, this might be a shit show, you know, and I have to prepare for that too. So what does a shit show even mean? That probably means we're going to be rushing a lot. And rushing is so bad because that's where mistakes tend to happen. If you don't have a good first AD who's like, or like a DP, just whoever's the showrunner for your project that's making sure everything that needs to get done gets done, those are so important. If you don't have that, the smallest things can be just get left behind. So let me finish this thought about how I get my subs first, and I'll tell you an example of how that can fuck me too if I'm not prepared correctly. So I'll ask questions, find out what I'm getting myself into, prep my gear the night before, just have everything charging just laid out because I don't want to forget a single thing. I've made way too many mistakes where I figured maybe I don't need it, it'd be bulky, or I don't want to risk losing it, so I'm not going to bring it, and I needed it. So I don't mess with it anymore. I just bring everything minus the things I know I'm not going to use. So if we're doing sit-down interviews, I don't need to bring my big-ass Apple box. I love it, but it's huge and it weighs like 20 pounds. So I don't probably need to bring that. And I also have like this big rig cart now where I can work on top of, and it's really convenient. Because a lot of times I would show up to a set and there wouldn't be a table, so I can't get my mics out, I can't get set up. And little inconveniences like that can set me back a few minutes because now I'm wasting time just looking where to set my shit up and get things out. Knowing what kind of project I am getting into ahead of time can help me save all of that. Do I bring the big rig or do I just come with a bag? Are we working like super fast? So the example I have though is we were doing interviews one day with these people, and then the guy show running, it was just 2 cam ops and me and a PA. So it wasn't like a big thing, but we finished our first interviews of the day, and then the showrunner tells me like, all right, so tomorrow's gonna be a faster run and gun sort of day. But that's all I know. So I'm like, okay, bet. So we're just gonna move faster tomorrow. Not knowing that they wanted to roll first thing at call time the next day, which to me is unheard of. Call time means you show up a little earlier than that time and you set up, not roll by that time. And like camera guys can do that, at least they could, because they were like on smaller, just pre-rigged cameras. I can't do that. If you want good, clean audio, I'm going to have to set something up. I'm gonna probably have to scan for frequencies if you want to make sure that we're not gonna get RF hits or something. We don't need to do that, but it's like, it's a risk. You know what I mean? It's like, am I going to risk giving you possibly muddier audio, but be faster or what? And so I didn't come prepared for that to shoot at call time. I show up, I pull all my gear out, I'm getting ready, and they're like, all right, let's go. I'm like, what are you talking about? I'm just pulling out my gear now. I still have to set up time code for you guys. I got to scan for frequencies to make sure we don't get those hits. I got to find out what we're even doing in here. Oh, we're just doing B-roll. So why the fuck are you asking me to lob him? He's in a gym. Why are we lobbing someone who's not even talking? All that could have been is just, hey, just get a boom out. That's it. But without asking those proper questions, without really knowing what is happening, I'm not going to be ready for that. I'm like, yes, that is my fault. That is on me. I can ask more questions, but also realizing that this is why communicating everything, even if you think it's not important, fucking do it. Please do. Because if the moment you assume something will get done, it won't, and it'll fall on you or someone else, and just shit will hit the fan. And it's happened too many times. Did you bring this thing? No, I didn't. Why didn't anyone ask me to? And it's happened before on a different set where I won't say who the client is because they're one of my repeat clients, but they usually, so we mentioned that typically it's expected that you supply the gear, right? But with this client, they always supply the gear. It's just at this point, because that's been the precedence, I assumed that that's going to always be the case. They're going to bring the gear with them. I show up to set and they don't have the gear. And the DP asked me, like, where's your gear? I'm like, I don't have it. I checked all the emails. It never said for me to bring it. He's like, well, you should always ask if you need to bring gear. I'm like, motherfucker. I do. Just not with you guys, because you've never needed my gear before. And only now, when it's my fault, this one time I didn't ask. Okay, now you guys needed it, and it looks bad on me. But it's like...
And it's such because then it goes back on you. But it's even like when we're repeat clients. It's like, damn, how many times okay, I'm gonna ask you. You're gonna say no, you don't need to. And then it gets to that point where it's like, I'm not gonna ask. And the moment you say that, they need it.
Exactly.
But yeah, it still ends up falling back on you, and it's such a headache.
Hey guys, so right now we're gonna cut. What you guys just watched was the first half of this episode with Marty Mcfly. He's making a lot of jokes over there. It's hard to concentrate. But you guys can tune in next week for the second half of this episode.